Hey, good morning. It's Saturday. Welcome to the Hardcore Mortgage Show, brought
Glanz
to you
and
by
Capital
Capital
from
Mortgage
Capital
Funding. I am Becky Alley, filling in for our fearless leader, Harvey, who's totally doing the dad thing in Arizona and sending his little daughter off to college. We got a great show. I got some amazing people. Obviously, no stranger around here, Mr. Harry Glanz.
Morning, everybody. Good morning, Becky. And you want to know something? It's always a pleasure hanging out with you, whether it's in person, via Zoom, on the radio, the podcast. You are truly one of the most professional loan originators in the country. And I say that because it's true.
Well, I thank you. And you are our fearless leader in there day in, day out. And another great, she's an advocate. We call her Google around the office. We got Miss Lisa Lawson on the line.
Thanks so much. Yes, that is truly my nickname. They do call me Google.
I know that when I'm being lazy, I'm going to take total, this is me. If I'm being lazy and I just want the answer, I'm calling Lisa.
Between you and Lisa, every day in my life and just being surrounded with you two guys, you make sometimes a hectic business just that much smoother. So I thank you ladies for that. And I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you. And obviously we have some great people on us that make our lives a little bit easier as far as vendors that we trust. It's everything about hiring the professionals around you. So we got Kevin Stripling from Home Inspection Professionals. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Happy Saturday.
Yeah. And then we got Matt Bush from Remax. He is no stranger to our show. He's welcome all the time. He's always with us. So I think we got him on the line. We're working on getting him on Zoom as well. Correct? You with us, Matt? Yeah, the caffeine is for sure hitting me hard right now. I'm not gonna lie. And so for anyone that's watching us on Facebook, we have been doing it via Zoom because obviously the world's still on fire. So we're finding different ways to kind of reach out and get everyone that we can possibly connect with. And obviously we have a lot to unpack. Obviously we're still seeing unprecedented impacts by the coronavirus that's impacting our daily lives. Obviously, families are gearing up to send their kids to school, and they don't know still. Some districts haven't even decided whether they're going to do in-person or virtual learning. And the biggest impact or biggest news actually that's affecting the mortgage land was this news that that came dropping like the Hiroshima bomb on Thursday morning when the FHFA came in like a thief in the night and announced that Fannie and Freddie are now going to be imposing a 0.5 point adverse market refinance fee on all refinance transactions. So talk about when I came in on Thursday morning, I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. Harry, what say you on this topic?
Yeah, so what that means to everybody out there is that the FHFA mandated to the government-sponsored entities, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, that they go ahead and impose a refinance fee of 50 basis points on every refinance transaction. So that immediately costs lenders and consumers immediately another 50 basis points in a loan. It did not affect purchase transactions. So in essence, what they're doing is they're fining everybody in the country. This is all lenders and all consumers for doing refinance transactions. They're capitalizing on everybody's want and need now for the lower rates. There's approximately between $8 and $11 trillion in refinanced mortgages out there. So they came in and they just arbitrarily, like Becky said, we're going to impose a fee of another 50 basis points. Now, every lender is going through that right now. So it's not like you could call your bank or another lender or, stay with the lender. Public service announcement number one. If you are in process right now with your lender, stay with that lender because number one, it's going to take you time if you pull that application and go somewhere else. I'm not a big advocate of that. Number two, this is across the board in our entire industry. And number three, it's hurry up and wait. You're going to have to hurry up to wait to get these things done, Becky. And as you know, all vendors are busy. But in terms of the refinance fee, all lenders had this handed to them Thursday morning.
Yeah, it's like they came in and said they want some sharks with freaking laser beams on their head and they wanted $1 million. But really, it's going to equate to, it's going to cost the lending mortgage servicers billions of dollars.
Billions. Right.
So
Billions of
basically,
dollars.
the FHFA is the Federal Housing Finance Agency, and it's a government it's a government agency has the authority over Fannie and Freddie. So in like dollar perspective, this 0.5, 50 basis points, half point hit, however you want to word it, just cost on a $300,000 transaction, $1,500 right off the gate for anyone. So your refinance that you were hoping for rates to go lower just got more expensive, unfortunately, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. It's not a capital mortgage funding thing. It is an everybody thing. And the other thing is that it's only going to be affecting conventional mortgages. So anything that's government backed, so FHA, VA, USDA, they haven't announced any adverse market fee. And obviously, like some people are saying, it's a money grab. Like obviously we're dealing with some market uncertainty since March. So it's not like it just happened overnight, obviously. I mean, but how is it going to affect you right now when you're looking to do a refinance right now? So I would say it probably affected your interest rate maybe by 1/8 to 1/4, just because
Easily.
now, there's going to have this half point that has to be absorbed, and it's either you as a consumer are going to be forced to pay that, or it's going to have to be absorbed in the rate.
Yep. It's either going to be a higher rate or higher fees.
I agree with that. And Lisa, I want to, we talk about this. We kind of laugh about it in the office because you can't not laugh about it. People can't get greedy. Rates are not going to fall forever. As a matter of fact, last week, as Becky said, they went up. We cannot go ahead and expect these rates to go down to zero. Some guy on the radio says you can't expect rates to go to zero. That's the deal. You can't. They're not going. Don't get greedy. Lock the rate in. We're going to close you as soon as we can. It's going to be delayed, but we'll close you as soon as we can. Right, Lisa? I mean, what are we going to do?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. And again, we want to reiterate, this is for refinances. So if you're out there looking to purchase a home, this isn't going to affect you for any purchase transaction. It's for every refinance transaction. But, a lot of people who are on the fence saying, I'm going to wait for that rate to drop another 1/8. I'm going to wait for that rate to drop another 1/4. Well, it kind of backfired on you. Rates are going up. You're either going to pay a higher rate or you're going to be buying down your rate with interest discount points. So
for sure. And that's something that I wanted to dive right into it because it is going to be affecting, because right now we are in a refinance market and we are going to get into the purchase aspect, but it was definitely something that I feel like if you didn't know, you need to know this, because if you're seeing, and we talk about this on our shows, our podcasts all the time, if you're seeing a paper ad or any kind of advertisement about rates as low as 1.99, guess what? Fake news. It's old. Yeah. It's outdated. It's a money grab. It's an attention grabber, a way to get you in the door. But obviously, things are changing every day, and obviously there's things that are beyond our control. So when you have a rate and you have a program, like Harry's saying, don't be greedy. You gotta lock the rate in. And so as far as if you haven't locked in your rate, it still makes sense. So don't be discouraged. So gasp if the rate went from 3 to 3.125. How spoiled are we to be oh my God, I can't even. So if you're waiting for these rates to go to zero, just don't. If it makes sense, lock it in. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I was actually looking at my notes. So the last time I think I was in the booth was right before, the world caught fire officially. It was I think it was March 14th, because I'm looking at my note right now. And at that point, I had written down that the rate was 3.875 average, right? So now we're almost a full point, or 3/8, below that. I mean, so it's, it still makes sense. So let's talk about that. So on the other side, like we were mentioning, the silver lining of all of this is that they have not imposed any unnecessary rate jacking, money grabbing for purchase transactions. So enter, it's a great news for Matt Bush, right? Right now, we're looking at a fantastic market. It's one of the most competitive markets still, to this day. And right now, I would say, I was looking at my notes. Let's see, we have in the Midwest alone, the market is kicked off strong with 21% in purchase applications. Just from June through August, they're up 21%. So what are you seeing out there, Matt?
is really picking up. But stuff that's, over 3.5, 400 is beginning to settle down. So really, if you are, you bought a house maybe 4, 5, 6,
All right,
7
hey-
years ago for your
Hang
first.
on, Matt. I don't want to cut you off, but we're going to get right back into this. We're coming up to a break. So when you come back, we're going to talk about everything that is going on with the seller's market and how we can put you in the best position possible to make your offer stand out.
Hi, Harry Glanz and Danberg from Capital Mortgage Funding. Over 30 years in the mortgage banking industry, hundreds of thousands of families served. Let us serve you. Capital Mortgage Funding, 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage banker.
the Hardcore Mortgage Show, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding. As always, I want to remind everyone that Capital Mortgage Funding is powered by Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation, MLS 2289, which is an equal housing lender. So on the line, we got our buddy Matt Bush from RE/MAX, and then we have Kevin Stripling from Home Inspection Professionals. We're going to definitely get into him for sure. We definitely want to hear from you, 248-539-9797. What's going on, man? What has it been like during this pandemic? We're now 5 months deep into this. What has it been like just in general, going out in public again? We're gonna have Harvey calling in a little bit later. He's in Arizona, sending his daughter off to school. And I'm actually curious to see what it's been like over in Arizona, because obviously we are, subject to our own little confined quarters in Michigan. And, so I just like to hear a little bit of what's going on around there. Just before the break, though, Matt was just about to tap into one of the most competitive markets we have seen. According to the National Association of Realtors, contract signings kicked off strong in August with the most contract signings, and it's up 21% from July. So, Matt, is August the new May?
It definitely is this year, especially for, first-time home buyers or, that starter home crowd. It's, we haven't seen the market peter off like we typically do in August. With COVID, with kids not going back to school in all areas, there's still time for families to go out and get into that house. So if you're thinking about selling that first home that you bought 5, 6, 7 years ago with that interest rate in the 4s, you can literally take the equity, which is probably 30-40% of your house, and roll it into that next house where, you can raise a family, have maybe a nicer school district. You and your wife or your partner, your fiance, can be in that bigger house that you've always dreamt of for roughly the same that you're paying right now, with the equity that you could be rolling in to that next house. So I know, I just had my refinance with Lisa. I paid off all my student loans. I paid off my car, and I'm paying less now after I took out like 30 grand more because of the interest rate change. So if you have equity in your home, we've seen these home values just absolutely go through the roof. On average, the person who's listing their house now under $200,000 is getting a 100% of the list price. That's average. So that means half people are getting more than 100% of your list price. So now is the time. If you're under 200, if you're under 180, Hazel Park, Oak Park, St. Clair Shores, now is the time to find that next house, that bigger house to really raise the family in, because your equity is through the roof.
Yeah, I feel like we were seeing for a second there a trend where people were maybe looking to downsize, but I feel like with the uncertainty of this pandemic, what people are looking for, their wants and needs have changed dramatically, because now you have the school, you're going to have to make, maybe a classroom for your children. Because you got to think about it, they're going back to school. They still don't know what their protocols are going to be. They're changing every day. So what are you going to do when you got your children are back at home, they're literally 5 weeks after school starts? Yeah,
and that's huge. 4-bedroom houses are up 200% compared to last year, just because people want that extra space. Finished basements have really gone up through the roof, just because, again, you need more space to do more things on site. One of the other things is those USDA loans that you guys write, they're 0% down. So if you live in Metro Detroit, and you're north of, I think it's 26 miles at this point, you can buy a house with 0% down. So you can get land, you can get acres, you can get, depending on where you are, great school districts, or just, you can get space to hunt, fish, just not be on top of your neighbors like you might be here closer to the city. So there's just a lot of competitive moving. And, now's the time that people are picking up and taking advantage of those super low interest rates, great competitive loan programs, in these turnaround times.
Hey, Lisa, just real quick, I want you to touch on USDA. So when you hear someone say it's 0 down, what does that really mean to a person that has no idea what anyone's talking about? And is it really I can just show up and sign some pieces of paper and now you have a house, or what's up with that?
Yeah, so 0 down means no down payment is required, but doesn't mean that there's no cost involved. So you still have to set up an escrow account. You still have to pay taxes. You still have to pay for homeowners insurance. So it doesn't mean that there isn't closing costs, but often with USDA, if the appraisal comes a little high, that can get rolled in. If it doesn't, you can negotiate with an agent and get seller concessions. So it is feasible to get in with no money, but 0% down doesn't necessarily equate to no money needed at all.
All right.
But,
yes.
It could be.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Agent. Yeah, absolutely. People call me all the time and say, I need to get that house. I don't have any money. What's that program? Or doesn't exactly work that way, but it can be structured. You just have to have a strong agent, some great negotiating skills like Matt, and we can get it done.
Yeah. All right. We got Harvey on the line. I'm excited to hear what is going on in Arizona. What say you, Harvey? Oh man, we're just living the dream in Michigan. We miss our fearless leader over here in the booth. Yeah.
Hey, Harvey, you're not blaming me for that rate increase? That's not my fault. There you go. I appreciate that, my man.
Yeah, and that's one huge thing that we've seen all summer really is possession after close. So it's not uncommon for someone who's looking to make that move to list their house first. Tell any buyers, hey, we're not leaving for 30, 60, sometimes even 90 days I've seen, because we've got to use this money to go find a house. So it's expected almost. And luckily, I think that's maybe one of the silver linings of COVID. We're not running kids into a new school district, so we don't have that time frame. We're learning virtually all over, so we don't have to be in a school district, on a school bus, in a school building, so we can, as families, allow that possession to take place. I've had so many clients have this apprehension about what happens if I sell my house? Where do I go? What do I do? The universe puts you in the house that you're supposed to be in. It almost happens like clockwork, where you sell your house and you almost find one the next day. It almost seldom happens where there's something that doesn't go off without a hitch here. So don't be scared if you need to sell to buy. And when you do sell to buy, you can roll all those proceeds into that new house. So say you make 50 grand and you have to put 10% down. That's a lot more purchase power, just because of the amount of a down payment you have, but also the interest rate. So when you talked about the half point increase, those are only for refinances, not for purchases. So you've got a reduced interest rate, you've got more money going into the house. So maybe it needs a new kitchen or some cosmetic updates. You can still put a sizable amount down, save money on your interest rate. Maybe you don't have PMI now too. So there's another maybe point or quarter point that you're saving on your interest rate. And you're in a bigger, better house for your family for the long term, for that next 10, 15, 20 years. Where you can raise that family and really kind of spread your wings and grow into it.
Yeah, there's definitely no doubt that right now buyers are experiencing the most purchase power that they have had in the history of ever, right? So we've been in a good position with rates. So keep it right here. We're going to keep more on that topic. 248-539-9797. When we come back, we're going to get Kevin into this, talking about home inspections. What is a deal killer? Keep it right here. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Hi, Harry Glanz and Danberg from Capital Mortgage Funding. Over 30 years in the mortgage banking industry, hundreds of thousands of families served. Let us serve you. Capital Mortgage Funding, 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage banker.
back. You're listening to the Hardcore Mortgage Show, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Funding on 97.1. A lot going on today. We want to hear from you about your mortgages, your purchases, and life in general in the new COVID-19 world. So give us a call, 248-539-9797. We got Kevin Stripling from Home Inspection Professionals. I definitely want to bring him in. He is a top-notch professional when it comes to who you want in there looking at the nooks and crannies of your home. So obviously the home inspector, it's important to have someone that's not only going to educate you as the realtor, but also someone that's important about, an inspector that's going to be not an alarmist, but whether someone who's going to kind of give you that calm, rational, explain the situation, explain what's actually going on through the process as you're purchasing one of the largest investments of most people's lives, right? So I have a question as far as we had someone that called in and they actually had a question as far as, if someone is wanting to sell their home, okay, and they know their home is not up to code, are you an advocate of them doing their own private inspection on their home?
Well, keep in mind that we're not code enforcers as inspectors. At least I'm not. And I take a common sense approach to things. Realistically, you might want to think about if you're actually selling your home, you might want to consider maybe having a pre-sale inspection where we can go through. And once again, when we talk about common sense, we're going to be looking for broken glass, steps, broken concrete, just the things that are out of the ordinary. And if we follow FHA or VA guidelines, a lot of that's common sense and a lot of that's safety issues. So once again, you want to make sure that you hired a qualified professional. And if you're selling your home, you might want to consider a pre-sale inspection.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Because not all cities, and some people think that if, let's just say the city you're trying to buy a house or sell your house in for that matter, if that city requires a city inspection, sometimes they think that that's going to be this blanket, oh, well, I know what's wrong with my house. And that's not always the case because some are going to be very invasive, but some are kind of just exterior only.
Sure, correct. And once again, when you have the city inspector with city certs, they're not going to look at the structural issues of that. They're not going to go up into the attic area. They're not actually going to climb on the roof, and they're not going to give you an overview of the roof. They're not going to give you a life expectancy. And a lot of times when you get into city certs, a lot of times they're not going to, some of them require that you actually have a HVAC inspection done on it, but a lot of times you don't see that happening. So it's one of these situations where on the pre-sale side, make sure, like I say, we're not code enforcers, and just make sure that you have a qualified inspector to go out and do the inspection. And we talked about this a little bit at the break. I had a situation yesterday where someone hired Dad, and it was a $100,000 condo, and Dad went in there and went through everything without going into the crawl space, without going into the attic, and went back to the realtor and said, well, I think that we need $20,000 off on the price on this. And it's one of these situations where I'm going to say that in this market, it's, the inventory's tight and there are so many buyers out there that realistically, I just don't think that's very realistic in this market.
No, I definitely agree with you. I think that who you hire and who you have behind you is going to be the difference of everything. And there is a difference between hiring a professional versus having your cousin's brother, sister's cousin, as Harry knows I love to say, coming out and just kind of just skimming the surface. Because like you said, there's a lot of things. Is there mold? What is the structure? Like, is the, when was the last time the hot water tank has been, tested? And, obviously I'm not a licensed inspector. So like, you're going to be the one that's getting in there and looking at it. So, to Dan from Waterford, for sure, I think that if you have even an inkling that you think that maybe your house is not up to code, I think we should get you in contact with Kevin. He'll come out there, he'll set you straight, and anyone for that matter. He is, when I say Kevin is top notch, he is top notch. He's not going to go in there and, like I said, be an alarmist. Although if I'm buying a house, I want someone to hurt my feelings on it. I want to know what's going on. Because we hear about it all the time. Do not waive your private home inspections, right? Because you are buying.
And honestly, at this rate too, a lot of times people are waiving that, and what we're seeing is that the market is so competitive that they're giving us 2 days, they're giving us 3 days for an inspection contingency, when realistically any good qualified professional is booked out 5 to 7 days. My admin told me yesterday, you can't get me until probably Wednesday or Thursday of next week, and we're running 7 days a week. So once again, be realistic. You have to be a little bit patient on the inspection process in regards to scheduling. So once again, Just make sure that you before the ink dries is what I tell people. Make sure that you line up your inspector. And
Hey, Kevin, hey, that's one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yeah, Kevin,
I've been
man,
saying it for
you just hit
30
the nail on
years.
the head. Yep.
I can't handle it just because somebody wants something emotionally that they're going to forget all the fundamentals of a transaction. And one of the fundamentals in a residential real estate transaction is you have to get an inspection, because out of emotion, if you let somebody talk you into waiving that inspection, that could create many problems for people down the road. And because the industry is busy and you're out 7 to 10 days or whatever that number is, and appraisers are out 7 to 10 days and lenders have to extend the PA, I'm telling everybody out there, do not waive your right to an inspection.
No, absolutely not.
No.
The other thing that I want to
And
talk
let me
about,
tell you, I mean, you guys probably,
if you're on the
sorry,
selling
sorry.
things, be prepared for that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but we've had a couple situations where people are on septics in Washtenaw, Wayne County, and Macomb County, and I'm a certified Macomb County septic evaluator. And some agents and some homeowners don't understand that they have to have that done prior to the sale and closing on this. So I've had 2 situations over the last 2 weeks where they called us last minute, and realistically, Macomb County is probably processing this about every 10 to 14 days. You need to get your septic evaluated if you live in a county that does that.
Yeah, and it's a requirement, Macomb, hence I live in Macomb. There's no waiving that, So
Right.
I was going to say, we get all the time, I'll have clients say, well, isn't an appraisal the same as an inspection? Why do I have to pay for both? And I tell people all the time, an appraisal is to establish value for us as the lender. It might be 15 to 20, 25 minutes. They're in and out. They're taking measurements. They're not turning on the hot water to make sure it runs hot. They're not checking anything like that. They're not, running your appliances to make sure they work. That is not the job of an appraisal. The appraisal is establishing value. It's done much more quickly, and it is not the same as an inspection. And people will say, what about an FHA appraisal? Same thing. They may check just a couple more things, but you definitely need a home inspection. You cannot rely on the appraisal to take a place of the inspection, regardless if it's FHA or not.
And what Kevin was saying, you might not want to have a full-on, have everybody do everything as far as inspection when you're a seller, but you want to sell your house fast. So if you are on a septic, you might want to have a septic inspection before you go to market, to where you can offer that to your buyer, so you can skip 14, 21 days in that pending period, especially if you've got to sell to buy. That could hold you up. So call people like home inspection professionals, have those little things done to provide that buyer peace of mind, especially if you're in that time crunch where you need to be in one place and out of another place real fast. It's a great way to speed up the process. It's not that expensive, and you can always get reimbursements from the buyer for doing something like that. So it's a great way to expedite the process when you're in a pinch in such a hot market.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So we are advocates on the private home inspection, and I actually think that the whole having your property looked at before you put it on the market is a smart decision. It's $300. Who cares? It's better than having the buyer go and do their private inspection. And you're like, oh, I had no idea I had to. I was 10 fuses short on my fuse box, and now I have to. You're asking me to replace these things when you could have had someone do it already, and it's not holding up the transaction.
Right.
Something else that Kevin brought up that I think we definitely need to touch on is the turn times right now. So just like when the hottest restaurant opens up and you got 2-hour waits and you want to go and eat that steak at that place, same thing is happening right now, is that the mortgage industry, real estate, everything is functioning at its highest capacity. So right now it's actually becoming a problem. So if you have a purchase transaction right now, it's almost an issue where people are over promising on closing times. And with what Kevin said, so if you write a purchase agreement for 30 days, so let me just break it down. Because you want your offer to stand out. So one of the things is, I'm going to close this transaction in 30 days. Well, guess what? You also put in a 10-day inspection period. So let's just say you have a 30-day transaction. You had 10 days of that going towards your private home inspection. Then you take 2 business days to get that document to the lender. You now are at a 2-week window that you are trying to move the sun, the moon, and the stars to close your mortgage. So at that point, is it really even a selling point? I don't know. I mean, so it's something that we're definitely going to be talking about for sure. I want to get in depth with that because the market and everything is functioning at its highest capacity, and we need a little bit of room to breathe.
And why are we setting ourselves up to fail? I feel like when we're giving these 30-day windows right now and we're having this 10-day inspection period and it takes a solid week and a half to get an appraisal back, you know, we're just setting ourselves up to fail. So we have what, 4 days to underwrite and close a loan?
Yeah, it's just not real.
Right.
Yeah. So
if we're
when we come
realistic
back,
up
we're
front-
definitely going to get back on this topic because
Yep.
it sets my soul on fire. So give us a call, 248-539-9797. We'll be right back.
Hi, Harry Glanz and Danberg from Capital Mortgage Funding. Over 30 years in the mortgage banking industry, hundreds of thousands of families served. Let us serve you. Capital Mortgage Funding, 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage banker.
Capital Mortgage Funding is powered by Fairway Mortgage, MLS number 2289, an equal housing lender. We want to hear from you, 248-539-9797. Obviously, the hot topics today are real estate market. You know, we're in a pandemic, but you wouldn't even know. It almost, I don't want to be insensitive when I say this, but the way the real estate market is trending and how quickly homes are flying off the shelves, you almost wouldn't even think we are in a pandemic, the way that it is just like an ebb and flow, the busiest. I know it's one of the busiest times I've ever seen. So, just before the break, we were talking about the unrealistic timeframes that people are now trying to impose on lenders and title companies and all that stuff. So when just for the break, like I said, we were talking about when you write a purchase agreement for 30 days and you're trying to use that as a selling point. But then you take another 7 days to have someone like Kevin go out there because they're busy, right? So they're going to be delayed getting out there. And then you have, you take your 2 business days getting the lender your documents. And we're also waiting for the appraiser to go out there. I mean, you're literally trying to move a mountain in 2 weeks, and a 2-week closing was great even before, like the busiest it's ever been. So the fact that right now, we as the lender, sometimes we're being forced to kind of operate in these unrealistic timeframes, and no one really wants to take ownership of it. But that's why I was appreciating Kevin saying, hey, I'm busy right now, and the industry as a whole is busy. So I think that it's something that needs to be addressed.
And it's really a disservice to the seller too, that the listing agent accepts, that kind of stuff. Because if you think about it, let's say an inspection's done and something comes up, well then, the seller's either A, got to fix it, and that's going to take the seller a couple days, maybe a week. B, then, if they don't want to do that, then the listing agent has to go back to maybe one of their backup offers with their tail talk saying, hey, we'll finally accept your offer, but this is going on. And then they have things that they have to disclose. So, and then you double that back with you selling your house to buy another one, you're adding your own hurdles, so having that 2-3 day inspection window is foolish. It's only hurting yourself. And to Lisa's point earlier, even if I accept a 3-day inspection window, we're not going to close the loan in 30 days more than likely, because something's going to come up. So I'm pushing the time frame back regardless, because I'm not going to, after 30 days of being pending, take the EMD, relist the house and wait another 30 days. I'm going to wait another week or 2, because it's going to be a lot faster to sell the house if I just wait for another week, and get it done that way. So these artificial time frames are really hurting everybody involved, and then the seller has a bad, taste in their mouth because, oh, it was supposed to be 30 days, this bank or that listing agent or this seller or that buyer. And then there's animosity over, something that realistically wasn't something that was going to happen the entire time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if the whole transaction is a rush and stressful from top to bottom, is it really a selling point at that point, right? So Lisa, like something like what he's setting, it's almost like setting us up for I hate you for closing my loan syndrome, which is something that is a real thing, right? So you can move mountains, right? But sometimes there's things that are going to come up on the transaction that have nothing to do with anything. They're just something that happens, right?
Absolutely. We say all the time, like we're just saying, if you get a 10 or 14 day or 7 to 10 day inspection window, it's going to take another 10 to sometimes 14 days right now to get appraisals back. I have appraisers, they put the best due date that they can. We try to share that information, but I always remind that the people who are buying this home that due date isn't set in stone. Everyone gets busy. These reports take time to complete. It's not that they go to the house to complete the appraisal and we're going to get it later that day. It's not an inspection, So now we've got 7 to 10 days for the inspection, another, we'll say 10 days for the appraisal, and then you think we're going to close the loan in a couple of days. The lender needs time to process. Everything gets verified. They're going to call your employer. Underwriters have to underwrite a file. We have to get all these different verifications. So it's an unrealistic expectation to put these 30-day closing dates, and then people want time to review everything. They want to know what their closing numbers are. Why are we pushing, stressing so people are running to get their check for closing, half hour before closing, and they didn't have real, time to sit and review all these numbers. We're not doing anybody any favors.
It's
strange. Just go to a regular 45-day. It's not that difficult. It doesn't really change that much of the transaction, but we're giving everyone time to do their best work.
Yeah.
Making sure that mistakes aren't being made because everyone's in a rush.
You are preaching to the
What
choir.
we do at Home Inspection Professionals is we pride ourselves on getting the report out at the time of the inspection. So once you get wrapped up with us, you have the information that you can send back to your agent. Once again, not every inspection company does that, but you have to anticipate maybe one day, 2 days on the getting the inspection results back.
And one thing about Kevin, and one of the reasons why I use Kevin so much, is he's not only focused on the inspection of the house, but both the long-term, short-term, and medium, maintenance. So, one thing that they do is they give you a checklist. Hey, every spring you want to do this, every fall you want to do this. So not only will you know what's wrong with the house or what needs to be addressed short-term, but you'll know, hey, in 3 years, these are the things that you're going to want to know. In 5 years, know this. So, next, budget for this project, budget for that. So it's not always just like change the color of the walls, but hey, let's focus on the furnace, or the hot water tank's 10 years old. The average life is 12. Maybe set $100 aside every 2 months to where in 2 years, when it hits its life expectancy, you're set up for success. So much of buying a house is maintaining it and keeping its value. That's how a house appreciates. So a company like Home Inspection Professionals, they're going to take 3 hours at your house. They're going to teach you everything, and they're going to set you up for not only today's success, but long-term success of being a homeowner. And especially when you're in today's hot market and you're buying your first home or your starter home, you need to have that knowledge to where you can be successful and really plan. Because the worst thing we're buying, with these fast turnaround times, and then you're rushing into a house, you don't know what you're getting into. And, those 3 hours with Kevin could have taught you so much to where you could have, minded what was best to put your family in that great position.
For sure. So, something I want to talk about is what are 3 things that you can do this week that's going to start and get you into a home faster, right? So it's Saturday, Monday. What can you do? You're thinking about buying a house. What can you do? For starters, let's check your credit, right? Lisa, would you not agree that would be the first step of the 3 to start off if you're looking to buy a house?
Yes, because I have people call me and tell me, I'm not sure if I'm even going to qualify. I think something's so not great with my credit. I pull their score, they're like in the 780s. And then the other extreme, I have people who tell me they have phenomenal credit. It's not going to be any issue. I pull their score as like, you need some pre-work. So the biggest factor is knowing what you can qualify for, how much you can qualify for, and the types of loans you can qualify for. A lot of it's based on credit score and how much you've got to work with. So that would be absolutely step number 1. Let's figure it out. And if you're not there yet, we can put a game plan together to get you there when you need to be there.
Absolutely. You got to take a look at that's, so you don't want to find the house before you look at the credit, because you could fall in love with something that you might not be able to handle. So definitely right there, you want to make sure. And if there's things on the credit, Lisa is fantastic. She's going to walk you through that as far as how to get that cleaned up. I think number 2 thing that someone can do this week would be, let's figure out what you can afford. So we checked your credit. Now we're going to sit down. We're going to figure out what you can afford, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We go through your income information, figure out what you've got to work with, how much you've got for down payment, where your assets are at, where they're coming from. If you're short on assets, can you get a gift? Do you have the ability to save? There's a lot of things that people can do to get in for very little money if you're especially a first-time home buyer. But these are the things that we need to know. We need to know where the funds are coming from. You can't just say, I'm going to come up with it, or I can get it by then. I can get it by then means nothing to a loan officer. How? Because cash in your mattress doesn't count. So, have that conversation. Let's figure it all out so we can figure out the types of loan programs that you're qualified for and get you done.
And be realistic. Don't expect to pay like $100 or $1,000 in rent and then go get a $3,000 mortgage every month. Just because you're qualified for a $500,000 house, your lifestyle might not support that. So make sure you're setting yourself and your family up for success, and you're trying to be consistent with your monthly payments.
Yeah, I like to call it, do you want to be married to your house, or do you want to be married to your spouse? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. I like it. I think it's important. Hey, Beck, I think it's important to note that when in this busy time, many lenders are taking hostage deposit money just to run credit reports. We don't do that. We do all this because we want to set you up for success. We're not going to rush you in anything. We don't want to qualify you for the absolute highest amount that we can. We want to qualify you for something that you're going to be able to lay your head on your pillow at night and be comfortable with. So don't play into the fact that don't write checks, give credit card numbers. Don't be subjected to hostage deposit money. We certainly don't do that, no matter how busy we are. It's not going to happen.
Right. I would say number 3 for the last and final that you can do this week is, once you've pulled your credit, we figured out what you can afford, we're going to set you up with a real estate agent, is making a savings plan for your down payment. I feel like assets and reserves is always an issue right now. So that's our show for this week. Our 3 tips are going to be, let's pull your credit, let's figure out what you can afford, and then we're going to figure out what you got to do to get that down payment, because 0% programs does not mean zero out of pocket. So keep it right here. We'll be on the podcast on Wednesday, the Hardcore Mortgage Podcast. We love hearing from you, and we will see you next week.